Now, you're probably familiar with Fernando Tatis Jr., one of the most exciting young players in baseball, one of the game's most valuable trade chips. The White Sox had him, and they traded him to the Padres in June of 2016 for a veteran pitcher by the name of James Shields. We're going to analyze that trade today. How on earth did that happen? I'm Todd from MLB Trade Rumors. We have launched a YouTube channel. We have a lot of exciting things going on here, so please do head down and subscribe really quickly to keep up with all the latest. Now, like most parents, I tell my kids, if you make a mistake, you gotta own up to it. So, look, White Sox GM Rick Hahn, he made a mistake. Let's see whether or not Hahn has owned up to it. That'll do, buddy. We got you, Rick. Look, it happens. Don't beat yourself up too badly. That being said, White Sox fans, I'm sure you're in the same boat that Hahn is in imagining just what this current roster would look like with Tatis on it. You'd be talking about an infield featuring Yohan Moncada and Tim Anderson, along with Tatis, Jose Abreu over at first base, Yasmani Grandal behind the plate. That would be a pretty exciting thing to watch. You might say, well, Tatis is a shortstop, don't need it. I think they can find room. You've got Leury Garcia in there. He's a nice utility guy. Let's put him back into a bench role where he belongs. Let's get Tatis in there, no problem. What about top prospect Nick Madrigal, a second baseman? Look, it's your embarrassment of riches. Do with it what you want. Somebody can go to the outfield. We can make a trade. The world's your oyster, man. This would be monumental for an organization in the exact spot the White Sox are in to have a guy like Tatis. Okay, enough what ifs. It hurts. You just gotta take the pain sometimes, but let's look back. How on earth did this happen? Going back to 2016, the White Sox got off to a really hot start. They were playing great ball early in the season, and then they hit the skids in the month of May, and leading into June, they had sunk close to 500. They were in third place, trying to chase down the Royals, and they needed rotation help. John Danks had completely washed out. Matt Latos, who had been signed as a bounce-back guy in the offseason, was struggling, and they had Chris Sale and Jose Quintana at the top of that rotation. You know, the staff hadn't yet fallen apart completely, but it was pretty clear it was going there. You had Carlos Rodon, you had Miguel Gonzalez, who ended up having a nice season, all things considered. So they thought adding that solid veteran guy was going to make a big difference. They acted quickly, and this is probably where the real problems came in. The White Sox decided, hey, we can't sit around and wait for the trade deadline. Who knows what'll happen between now and then. We got to get this guy on the roster right now. And so they spent about a week, according to reports, working out this deal for Shields, who had actually been throwing pretty good to open the season, at least in the results department. He got shelled in one start in the week just before the trade, but the White Sox decided to go ahead and pull the trigger. As Hahn put it, looking back on the deal, that was the last deal that the team made at that time with a short-term mindset. But look, they knew what they were getting into with Shields. He was 34 years of age already. The velocity was going downhill. He had been giving up home runs at a worrisome rate. And everybody knew this. This was common knowledge at the time. The Padres had reached out and signed him to that big contract. Even then, people wondered whether that was really a wise deal to make with a guy. And this point of the deal, it was beyond obvious. That's why the White Sox were able to get the Padres to pay down $31 million of the $58 million left on the contract. So everybody knew this, but the White Sox were desperate to get a solid, reliable veteran into that staff. As it turned out, Shields was anything but. He ended up really going off the rails after landing in Chicago. 6.77 ERA down the stretch. The home runs became an enormous problem. Of course, the White Sox ended up at 78 and 84 out of the postseason, and it really just didn't work out at all. Now, at the time, I cannot claim to have known anything special about Tatis other than recognizing the name, as we all did, from his MLB father. But the deal seemed like a stretch because of the situation with Shields, because looking at that roster, it just didn't seem like the White Sox were really able to contend. The guy in the trade that I was kind of intrigued by was the one we haven't mentioned, who's 26-year-old righty Erik Johnson. He had been a top 100 prospect. He went to San Diego along with Tatis. As it turned out, he ended up needing Tommy John surgery and never really got his career going again. But some people much smarter and more aware about the prospects than myself, they were on this guy. Not only was he a guy with those MLB bloodlines, but he was a player that had shown huge maturation physically just that spring. Now remember, Tatis was an underhyped teenage signee out of Latin America. He was not the kind of guy that was big on the radar even among those prospects. But he was young. He was only 17 at the time of the deal. And so he had made big strides physically just before this trade went down. I mean, look, I'll tip my cap. Eric Longenhagen of Fangraphs, their prospect guy, he was on this. He said, back in extended spring training, this kid has blown up a bit. He's showing improved action, makes you think he might stick at shortstop. Could be an average hit and power guy in the big leagues. Suddenly, a pretty interesting prospect on the rise here. Now, we were not at that point talking about top overall prospect in baseball type of stuff, but this was a guy with now undeniable potential who is really turning into a legitimate prospect. And hey, Hahn himself even says that the organization was really aware of it. He said nobody went into this unaware of what Tatis could turn into. They saw the upside. They knew what they had. But what's the thing that we also tell our kids when we're teaching them about responsibility, about mistakes? We say, own up to it and learn from them. Hahn says the thing he took away from this is that the organization was trying to fill in something that it needed. When you're in that contention position and you are lacking depth, you've got to get it when you need it, and that forces you to draw from areas of your organizational resources you'd rather not do, and that's what ended up happening to him. So, moving forward, Hahn obviously indicating he's committed as this team starts to ramp up into contention to keeping that kind of depth on hand so you don't have to go scrambling when the season starts. We'll see how it goes. The White Sox only now reaching that point where they're expected to start pressing to get back to the postseason. Look, Hahn has made a lot of great trades to bring in some of the key young players on that roster right now. This one stung. It happens. We learn from it and we move on. We also want to learn from and move on from our own mistakes. So if you didn't like anything or if I flubbed something, go down in the comments, let me know. Please do subscribe on your way down. Hit the like button. Let us know what else you'd like to see on this channel.